Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody. That's a group called The Offspring. The song is titled Low Self Esteem. Some of us might have had that before, maybe not. But uh, the thumbnail, I'm riding Mike Francese's shirt tails, and some of you, he's got a big Mafia channel. First of all, thank you, everybody. Come in, join me, hang out with me, and if you like, hit the like button. If you share, and subscribe and all that stuff. We're up to 470, so let's just get to 500, and that's a wrap. So I appreciate you folks that come in here, and I'm not the traditional type of channel. That's my introduction, holding the phone to the speaker. But we have fun anyways, whether it's 5 or 500. So Mike Franzese probably got the biggest YouTube channel, mafia orientated, but I'm glad he's doing more current events and stuff these days. And there's many reasons why Mike Franzese never got killed. We'll start common sense. I say in my other videos, Mike was very calculating, just so cerebral, and if you're playing a chess game, he's got you in check. He's got your king cornered, and that's it. But Mike, it's survival. These guys, Joe Public can sit back and criticize and hate or whatever and talk a lot of stuff, but when you're more or less living in fear of your life all the time, that's a different perspective. We could sit back, armchair Monday morning quarterback, and go, oh, you. But Mike was always 5 steps ahead of the FBI, of his enemies, and within his own family. And Mike came in, and of course he had that the gas tax scheme, and there was millions and millions and millions, maybe $1 billion over the period of time they took it in. And Mike wasn't, well, more or less, there's a big money making operation, so he's handing the money up or whatever, but he really didn't reveal the enormity of what kind of numbers there were, because the 5 crime families had their rackets and made huge amounts of money, but nothing like historically the mafia ever seen. You can add up all the money generated from rackets and hustles from any gangster from the beginning of time, add them all up, and it wouldn't equal this gas tax scheme that Mike. So he's sitting on all that, and they debate, the Russians turned Mike onto it or whatnot, but nonetheless, Mike was reeling in millions of dollars every week. And there's boss, captain, everything else. So you got to send money up. You got to make sure everybody's taken care of. But he doesn't really want to show his hand that much, because they might be thinking, if they knew the real amounts of money, they'd be saying, hey, we want more. We want more. And So if the bosses got to the Russians could say, "Whoa, he's making millions of dollars." They could expose him. So Mike was always thinking ahead. So what else do you have to dodge? How come Mike Franzese didn't end up in a basement, tied up, and being extorted when they figured the amounts of money? Because people murdered and killed and extorted for a lot less. And this will never be spoken on, but I've talked to whoever that gave me a couple tidbits, because I don't know about the law, I don't know about immunity, I don't know about all that shit. But this is just legend and lore and guessing. So let's establish that. So with Mike, you got to realize families are running their rackets. They're trying not to war. They're trying to stay in their lane and grab what they can. But if I'm a boss of one family and all of a sudden I catch wind that this other guy's taking in millions and millions of dollars every week, I might be thinking, I want a piece of the action. I want to go have a talk with him and, just pay off money for peace, just to keep peace. And one family extorting another family. So Mike Franzese could already see that whether then the other leaders and bosses of the other families catching wind and then come a knocking and say, "Hey, can we get in on this?" Blah, 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 blah. And whose territory? Because the gas stations are all over the place. So he's making that gas tax scheme racket on gas stations that are located on other families' turf, geographically speaking. So Mike Franzese already had thought about that and went to them first before they come back pissed off and say, "Hey, mofo, you're grabbing all the money. You're running these rackets. There's 64 gas stations on our turf, and hey, we want some of that money. You're just not going to come run that racket on whatever boroughs, Brooklyn, the Bronx, wherever the crime family was held, their territory, just like gang territory. You're not going to go hustle. One gang's not going to hustle on another gang's territory. One crime family better be careful if they hustle on someone else's crime or on their territory. So Mike Franzese already, of course, he's always 2 steps ahead, and he went to them because if they came to want a payoff, they would want a lot more money, opposed to Mike going to them in good faith and saying, "Here's a package," which would probably be a lot less in that package than if some other boss or a captain or somebody came to him and said, "Hey, we got a problem. You're making millions of dollars and you're off of the gas tax scheme, and those gas stations are on our territory. We got a real big problem. We demand you give us X amount of dollars." Excuse me. That might have got a little more hairy. So Mike went to the captains and bosses, and you'll never see this on anybody's channel. You'll never see this. I'm just a small little channel. This is just a small channel. Folks that come in here, that's cool. But there's still people alive, and my godfather was alive back then. Excuse me. They want their time trying to, no, never mind. So And I remember we never knew Mike Franzese would have a big channel or anything like that or all that stuff. Who would have ever guessed? But, and there's a couple old timers that are 80 today. And salute RP. RP, God bless you, RP. Real old time gangsters that were there. See, witnesses, not all this lore. So Mike was smart and he paid them off. He paid them off. Well, what about all the fines? Hundreds of millions of fines, that's in all that paperwork, and they say Mike Franzese had to pay 100 million in fines and all that. What? How did he swing that? How did he swing that? I don't know. How did he swing all that? Government fines, he got exposed for this and that, blah, blah, blah. And Mike Franzese might be one of the smartest, most calculating gangsters that ever lived. And he was smart enough to keep the people happy. Smart enough when to hold them and when to fold them. And they say he ratted on a couple guys, and then the FBI records you can't trust, and everybody's dead. And I'd have to say what are they gonna do? Everybody's passed away, and back then Mike Franzese was not out in the public. No, his name was generic. His father, Sonny, was more known, but he was doing life in prison. He got out of prison when he was 100 years old. But he wasn't a regular. He was a behind-the-scenes thinker. He made the money, and they said, okay, you can be the boss. You could, you got a promotion. He was giving them millions of dollars even before the racket. Or he was making big payoffs to them even before that. So, hey, you could be the boss, but Mike Franzese wasn't really the boss, as the total boss making total decisions. I'm guessing. But I'm just saying, the other guy, another guy, L.A. Airy, one of the guys was in prison. I don't know if Persico was in prison or not, but I don't know. People were in and out of prison, and a lot of times you think that they want the FBI to think this is the boss, this is the captain, this is the underboss. The hierarchy. They want for the public and the FBI or whatever to think that's the hierarchy. But when another guy over here is holding the power. Mike Franzese didn't have the power of a real boss. He had money that gave him the title or his promotion. Hey, you come over here with a couple millions, I'll call you the king of frickin' America. We'll give you a title. We'll put a button on you and say, yeah, you're this and that. But thank you kindly for that donation. And he was smart enough. But how far in bed with the FBI? Well, who knows? We guess. But he did it in certain ways where if some guy got out of prison, they didn't want to come kill him. With the FBI, it's tough to talk about the FBI and things like that because it's just not good. But they can fix anything to make it look like, hocus pocus. And Mike Franzese, more or less, would just ride off into the sunset and nobody would know the difference. So, and Mike Franzese did his time. But if he was a boss or a captain and there was murders, and usually they're ordered by the bosses and captains, then you'd go to prison for life. Forget about anything. I mean, you'd go to prison. You'd go to prison. All the bosses and captains, they all went to prison for life. Mike Franzese didn't. They could have said he was this or that, but somebody else was running the show, and giving those orders. But I'm not knocking him for that. I'm complimenting him on that, to be that smart, And when the smoke clears, he's got the money, and he's a free man, and he's living large. So Mike Franzese, all those guys were extorting and all this, but you say, oh, well, they extort just people in public, contractors, whatever. They extort the general public. But Mike Franzese didn't want to get extorted, quote unquote, by other families to say, hey, you're running all over, grabbing all this money from all these gas stations. Time to pay up. He beat them to the punch and gave them, made them all happy, and then pay them off again, and then things got shuffled around or whatnot, and the environment changed, the complexion of things changed, and he got out of Dodge. He left town, and he really didn't leave any enemies. Anybody that wants to come gunning for him, I mean, if they wanted Mike, they would have got him. Don't matter if he ran off to California or not. Back then, I mean, how many people can leave the mob? You can't just say, well, I'm retiring from the mob. Have a nice life. You can't just walk away. No, that's not available. That's not, a regular corporation retirement. At a young age, there's old timers that go into retirement, just they're limited, it's limited. Or they might still by name be the boss, but they really got other people running the show. You don't see that on these channels, but they want to sensationalize and dramatize all that bullshit. But Mike Franzese never got killed because he was 3 steps ahead of everybody, and he knew how to play the mafia. He knew how to play the co-defendants. He knew how to play both sides of the fence, the streets and the government, and he knew potential enemies. And Mike Franzese was one of the sharpest men that ever did it. And I like that he's doing other commentary on his channel about current events and everything and stuff like that. So salute to Mike Franzese. And Sammy the Bull Gravano will give you a salute too. He did join the army, Sammy the Bull Gravano. He did join the service. Good for him. So, hey, I'm not bashing anybody. I'm not bashing anybody anymore. Jesus doesn't like it. I'm not going to be a Bible thumper, but we'll try to do a little better. So I'm going to do a video tomorrow, the next day, of veteran killer versus a rookie killer. And my godfather was a veteran killer. And the reason why they would outsource to a guy for a hit rather than have just a hitman in their own family do a hit. So that's an easy video. So thank you, folks, for coming in. God bless you all. Let's try to stay happy and focused. And let's see if I can get to 500. They turned my channel off, but since it's back on, let's try to experiment. It's not all fancy bells and whistles. It's just little old me. A picture of a horse race coming down the stretch at the wire, and the globe, and a blank wall. So that's it, folks. God bless you all. Stay great, stay strong, hang in there, and we'll check it. We'll check you out next time. And thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate that, folks. Helping me out like that. Thanks a lot, everybody. God bless.